No, it's just like it'll be funny in real speaker, and then we all get together at the end.
Yes, yes. Good morning. Hello. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Hello, Steve from Carolina del Norte. Hello, One to Watch. Where are you watching from? Hello, Matangi. Good to see you here. All right. So this background behind me, doesn't it look fake? Isn't it gorgeous? Doesn't it look like it could be like green screen? This is
It,
it's not. It is not green screened. It is amazing. Oh, One to Watch, you're from Berwyn. Lived there for 30 years. Berwyn is town right next to the town of Cicero, which is right next to Chicago, where I grew up. So that's super cool. I think if anybody watches Better Call Saul, I think that takes place in Berwyn, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I watch way too much TV. And this is me trying to fake energy because I'm in Manizales and I'm alone for now. But the rest of the crew is going to join me in a few minutes while the rest of you join us. So let me catch you up on what's going on. I'm Jenny from Baila Travel. Kevin and Karen and Dave will be joining us for today's live stream to talk about what it's like to be a foreigner in Colombia. So, a little bit of context for anyone who's new. So, Kevin and I are originally from Chicago area, and we are Mexican American. So, we're first generation born in the US from a Mexican immigrant family. Separate families, of course. We're a married couple, and we've been traveling Mexico for 2 years in search of home. Along the way, in the world of YouTube, we met the lovely La Karencita and her husband Dave in Querétaro. And thankfully, this world of YouTube has brought us many friends, including many of you who are in the chat right now, whether we've gotten to meet you in person or we've interacted through this medium. That's been super fun. So I'm really glad that you guys are here. And if you're watching this replay later, really, really glad for that as well, because that continues to support the channel, that continues to help us continue making videos. But I digress. The point is that now we're all in Colombia, coincidentally, or coincidentally not. Kevin and I claim that Karen and Dave copied us, while Karen and Dave claim that we copied them. So here's the thing. Kevin and I decided to spend a few months in Cali, Colombia. The city of Cali is the third largest city in Colombia. And Karen and Dave decided to move to Manizales for a few months as well. We just so happened to be here at the same time. Wink, wink. So, what we're going to do today is bring Karen, Dave, and Kevin on for some conversation about what it's been like so far, particularly with our identities. So if you've traveled anywhere, which you probably have, you know that your personal perspective, where you come from, that informs what kind of culture shocks you experience, what kinds of observations you might make, what you find interesting, what's normal or not to you when you're in a new country. And for us, that's been an interesting dynamic because we're we all came from Mexico, but some of us, grew up in different places. So Kevin and I grew up in the U.S., but we're very close to our Mexican heritage. And Dave is from the United Kingdom. Karencita is born and raised in Mexico. So this should be a really interesting conversation. We've already started this conversation yesterday because Kevin and I arrived to Manizales, and we've started to generate some of this conversation. We thought, well, this would be super fun live. So before I bring them on, I want to check in and see who else is here with us today. Okay. Must be stalking you. Did you forget to pay them rent when you were staying in their house? Maybe we did. So they're following us to make sure that we pay them rent. JK, Colombia is a nice place. It really is. It's beautiful, as you can see. And we're all just seeing a global arbitrage. Yeah, people are starting to venture out. I feel like during the pandemic, Mexico was one of the few countries that remained open to tourists and primarily to Americans. So it was very natural for many travelers to focus, I think, in Mexico. And now that the pandemic has subsided, a lot of people are starting to venture out, and we just happen to have common interests. All right, who do we have? Hit up Mr. Taco for number 11, many nights, 2 to 3 a.m. Mr. Taco is on Taqueria and Route 66 going through the town of Cicero. You've been. I see Kevin nodding, going like, "Oh yeah, all right." So, okay. Saludos from San Antonio, Texas. I love San Antonio. I have family in San Antonio. Saludos a San Antonio. Hello, Sin Sayaki. Tocadiscos, Ed Hash. What are we talking about? What are tocadiscos? Are we talking about like nightclubs? Hola to San Diego, Mickey. Doug. Hi, Doug. How are you? Carlos Zavala. Hey, also from Chicago, supporting. Yes, thank you. I love traveling to Mexico, showing. I'm so glad that we get to show you places on your bucket list. All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to bring our first guest on today's show, and that is Dave El Inglés. Vamos, Dave El Inglés. Let's give him a round of applause. Woo! This is Dave. Dave, how are you liking Manizales so far?
I love Manizales. This is why we came back after last year.
You were here a few months ago, right? Back in 2022 when we were living at your place. You were based in Manizales for how long?
4 months in August.
A month in August. And what brought you to Manizales in the first place?
Well, we wanted to see the interior of Colombia. We used to live on the coast, so we're familiar with that. But
what part of the coast?
We lived in Barranquilla.
Okay, and this was when?
12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Karen and I met while we were studying in Barranquilla.
It's a love story. Yes, I've seen your love story. You guys have a video on that.
Yes, multiple.
Yeah.
And we wanted to come to the interior, and a lot of people are talking about Medellin.
Okay, yeah, they do.
But yeah, our friend Tar, she had a bad experience. She got robbed. We heard a few negative stories, so we looked for another city.
Okay.
And kind of by chance, we ended up choosing Manizales.
Manizales. Well, it's great so far. There's a little something else we got to tell you about, and it's that we have a little friendly rivalry going on. And that's that Kevin and I, we love Cali. And Karen and Dave, they love Manizales. And so part of what's going on today is we're going to start talking about why each of us chose this city. But before we get into that, I want to introduce the next guest on our show. And bring on Kevin. Let's give a round of applause. Hey, Kelly, currently in Puerto Escondido.
That's right. My name is Kevin, and I'm Baila Travel's camera guy. Try to focus on the best shots for Jenny.
Stop. That's not true.
Good morning, y'all.
He is the other half to Eat Baila Travel. And he woke up 5 minutes ago, if you can tell.
Salud, everybody.
So we had a great night last night out in Manizales. Karen and Dave are trying really hard to convince us that Manizales is much better than Cali.
So, of course, they took us out and made sure that we had a good time.
They did.
Yeah. I had too much of a good time last night.
Yes.
Mostly because it's been rough. I actually traveled the day before, but for 18 hours from Austin, Texas.
Yeah, something we haven't mentioned on social media and anything, because safety reasons, is that we were actually apart for several days this week, and it was really tough.
So we should have an interesting vlog coming up, because we're going to show you our perspectives from different cities like Medellin, Austin, Cali, being
Texas.
apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, look forward. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us. Kelly, I'm glad you have internet. That means that Puerto Escondido is advancing. And we're doing great. Doug Miller, I had some ice in Austin, man. It's crazy. I couldn't do much. Well, Thank you so much for joining us. We're not leaving, but the next guest is one of the most important ones today.
Bring on our main guest for today's show.
Told you I'm just a camera guy.
Shut up. Give it up for La Carencita. Woo! Hi. Oh, sorry. My ear got stuck in.
How are you feeling today?
I'm doing okay. I'm great. No, I'm happy. I'm a little tired because we got very little sleep last night.
It looked easy on Friday when you said the idea.
We're like,
now
let's do a live stream, and then we didn't really think it through that we were going to be going out, getting a little sleep. But here we are having a good time anyway.
Yeah. So we're here. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Let's see who else is here. John Edward, Juan Eduardo, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? He's got his cup of dark roast Colombia. Honestly, where did my cup go?
Kevin
took my coffee. I was about to show you my coffee. Kevin took my coffee. But Colombia has some of the best coffee in the world. Thank you.
And especially in this part of the region, they seem that they are very proud of their coffee
They
around this
are.
region, and that's something that I want to show you today.
Yay, I'm excited. So Manizales is part of what's called the Eje Cafetero,
Cafetero,
which in English I believe is like the coffee axis, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a triangular zone of Colombia where most of the coffee production is made. And it's funny because last night when we were out, it was like midnight, 1 a.m., and you can smell coffee being roasted throughout the city at like all odd hours of the night. That's just something that I don't normally
coffee
see.
Plantations are not here, but in the mountains. So that's something cool. That's something special. 1 point more.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to talk to you about like what your experience has been so far, because for us it's been really interesting. So my first question for you is like, when people often ask you where you're from, do they notice your accent? Because for me, they often ask, "Y ese acento?" And what's your accent? Do they normally know right away that you're Mexican, or do they just kind of ask? Or what is that like for you?
The majority of the times, they realize I'm Mexican, but not always. It depends on, I don't know. Well, we were talking about this yesterday. There's an accent around Colombia that is not. It doesn't sound very Colombian. And once I had this confusion. There's a region, or there's a place called Pasto in the south of Colombia,
and that's the one that's near Ecuador.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
So the accent's much different than like the rest of Colombia.
Yeah. It seems, well, it's not. It doesn't sound Colombia, definitely. So I went to a bar the other day, and the guy asked, "Are you from Pasto?" But I already knew the stereotype of because the stereotype is that Colombian people, they have this stereotype that people from Pasto are stupid. So, and the accent is different. So they asked me, and I was like, "No, I'm Mexican." But that's why I answered that way. But the other times, not really. Sometimes they don't ask. Sometimes they just tell. I don't know. That's my experience. What about you?
So for me, it's a lot like very random. So Uber or Didi drivers, like rideshare apps, they ask. All I do is say, buenas noches, ¿qué tal, cómo está? And just I can say 3 words, and they automatically, you're not from here. So for me, they don't always guess Mexican right away, and I think that's because I've lived in Spain, I've lived in Ecuador, like studied abroad, and I feel like over time in my young adult life, I adapted very easily, probably as like a defense mechanism. Actually, one of my Uber drivers the other day was a psychologist, and he was telling me that's very natural for us to do. And so I feel like my accent ends up morphing weirdly. So I have some very Mexican things, and then some very like just kind of I almost try to sound Colombian without even thinking about it.
And does it happen to you that you're with a Colombian person and then you start speaking? You think, well, unconsciously you start speaking like a little bit like Colombian.
A little bit, yeah. And I swear I'm not even trying.
No, that's normal, I think.
But if you ask me to do the Colombian accent for you, I can't. Like, I can't do it on demand. Kevin's pretty good on that. So let us know if you want him to do that. I can bring him back on and have him try it. Hi, Jill. Good to see you here.
Hi, Jill.
Mickey's asking about costo de vida. What's the cost of living? Those are things we'll definitely be talking about.
That's a good question. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to hear your opinion because we haven't been to Cali yet. So we want to see, of course, those differences. But I think you already have an idea, more or less, of those things, cost of living.
A little bit, because we arrived to Cali on just a few days before Christmas. So we've been in Colombia now a month, and we've shopped for groceries. We've gone out and seen prices of things. And so it's we'll talk about that. We're not going to get too deeply into this right now because I want to switch out our guest and ask the same question to the next person. So can I get Kevin back on?
Bye.
We'll bring you back in a few. Bring you back. Okay.
This
So
is like speed dating.
this is like speed dating. We don't all fit in front of the camera. We can try hugging. But right now, I want to ask, oops, moving the camera. I want to ask you what your experience has been like so far with like people. Do people notice you're Mexican? Like they don't know that this is this year's World Cup Mexico jersey right away. They just see a brown looking guy who has very different features from everyone else around here. They're like, what do they tell you?
I think I've only been in Manizales for 24 hours, and the experience from Manizales to Cali.
Cali, yeah. That's very Colombian.
Cali.
Very like a hard C, like K.
They're pronounced the vowels like
Cali.
But
yeah.
in Cali, it's been a different way of approaching like where I'm from.
In what way?
I think in Cali, it's more so like, curiosity, where are you from? And it's like, but I think it's from my features.
Because you look different?
Because I look different, and there's like a rising community in Cali of Mexicans in Cali. So I think that like we might look similar. So I get that like,
you look similar to that growing population.
Yes, I think so. So they kind of guess it. It's like, oh, eres mexicano, or I don't know. I feel like it's features, maybe hair, and then we'll get into like these long conversations of how they dream about going to Mexico. They like that spicy food is coming to Cali, and it's been nice. And then last night here in Manizales,
same thing.
Up in the mountains, it was different. Like. We were waiting to get a taxi, and then some lady. I mean, she was
a lot drunk.
Yeah, she comes up and she's like, "Tú, eres pastoso," and I was like,
meaning you're from Pasto, where Karen was just talking about.
No, I'm from Mexico, 100%. And then she's like,
oh, and then she
just walks away. I was like, what in the world? So yeah, I think. It makes a difference when Cali is a little bit more. Is the third largest city in Colombia, and Manizales is up in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Smaller.
So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's less. It does feel a little bit like there's a less amount of diversity here compared to Cali. So that has been my experience.
So they're not as familiar with Mexicans in Pasto, for example. I mean, sorry, not in Pasto. Here in Manizales, and so they associate a different accent. A funny sounding accent maybe to people from Pasto.
And then Pasto is closer to Cali, so it makes a little bit more sense that people are familiar on what their features are. Yeah. Cali is a very diverse city.
Yes.
All colors. It's people from all over Colombia and different places. So it's a cool place. So that's been my experience so far. For the most part, we've struck out really good conversations in Cali. Mm-hmm. So far, not so much in Manizales. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Cool. Have you gotten like any strange comments on your accent? Like when people ask you, for example, also where you're from, what do you say?
Oh, that's always complicated. I always have this script, like my elevator pitch. Originally from Chicago, but I have blood and heart from Mexico, and I live in Mexico. So that's exactly what I say.
Same here. It's not a simple answer for us in particular because people expect a short answer, like a city or a country, and it's just not. Like we can say we're from the U.S., and then they're gonna give us like a tilted, like confused look, where they are wondering, well, but your accent, you're clearly some sort of Latino, and so we already anticipate that like curiosity. So my answer when they ask me where are you from, I don't really answer the question. I say I give my identity. I say I'm Mexican, but I've also lived my entire life in the U.S., but I also now live in Mexico. But also I'm living in Cali, so then it becomes like
2 years of experience helps kind of like ease that conversation up and make it quick.
Mm-hmm. But it's a constantly changing answer too, depending on like what we've been doing, where we are now, because right now we're based in Cali, and it's just and then for me especially, my answer changes if I'm alone or not. When I'm with you, I'm more comfortable making conversation. But this past few days when I was alone, I gave very limited information to people making friendly conversation just because I had my guard up a little bit more. So I would just say things like, I'm from Mexico. What part of Mexico? And then I always say where my family's from. I'm from Zacatecas. Oh, but like, this and that. I don't know. They don't know. In Mexico, Mexicans can often tell that our accent was different. Like maybe to you watching, listening to us, depending on, where you're from, if we just sound Mexican to you, like, that's cool. Like, I enjoy that. But there are Mexicans in Mexico who can tell that our accent is not just one specific region in Mexico.
Right.
It's also been like a mix, and also a result of our Spanglish. Like, we speak a lot of Spanglish too in the US.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So thank you so much. I'm going to bring you back in a few. But the next thing I want to talk about before we switch out, can you go grab the next one for me?
Hey.
Is some of our culture shocks, including like our favorite words or things like that. So let's bring Dave back on. Yes, Dave.
Yes, hello.
Yes,
again.
hello.
Thank you.
Dave El Inglés. So first, tell me what kind of reactions you get to people like when they say they can probably tell you're a foreigner, I'm guessing, or what's been that experience? Do they assume, wow, you're Mexican, or do they, oh wow, you're definitely European, or what kind of comments do you get from people?
I think here in Manizales, like I don't really stand out physically.
Too much?
I mean, there's a lot of white people, like
Okay.
very white people. So
But like Colombians white or foreigners white? Are we talking, which one are we talking about?
there's not that many foreigners really yet, but like
Okay.
a lot of very white Colombian
Okay.
people, like so.
Okay, so physically not too much. When
Yeah,
you
like-
start talking.
Like blonde people, yeah, but
Uh-huh.
but yeah, start talking, and it's pretty obvious I'm not from here. So
Do they ask, or do they go, oh, you're from X?
it's not like people are, I don't know, putting so much attention on it or anything, but they, you get talking to people. Oh, like, yeah, how long are you here for? Where you from?
Oh,
I
okay.
just say, I'm from the UK, but I live in Mexico. So I add that because otherwise they're gonna say like, oh, okay, why do you speak like that? So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the reason I ask the question in that way is because it happens to us a lot in Cali, where people like they go, "You're Mexican." Like we say a few words and they go, oh, "Órale, güey, ándale, cabrón." Like they just start spewing out the Mexican words that they know, and we just kind of go, "Yeah, okay,"
Yeah.
kind of laugh along.
But they love Mexico here.
They do.
They love it, yeah.
And if I hear, are we talking just Manizales or Colombia in general?
Oh, I mean, I think we've seen it more in Manizales, but I
Yeah.
think it's probably like a Colombian thing in general.
I think you're right. I think there's like some sort of popularity of Mexican culture in Colombia that we've definitely noticed in the music, in like taquerias. We're seeing more restaurants, and that stands out to me because there are. It's not like I see many other countries being represented in their restaurants or other music, like the number of rancheras and norteñas mexicanas, like songs that I've heard like in taxis
Really
or
popular,
out on the
yeah.
street has been really fascinating. And I feel like there's something there, and that's something that I want to maybe discuss in another video about why that might be. But do you have any theories? Just basically.
I just wanted to say, well, it's a bit disappointing for me because I'm with Karen and people will say, where are you from? Maybe they ask me first because maybe I look a little bit more foreign. And I'll say, I'm from the UK. And they're like, oh, cool.
And they go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, great. And then Karen says, I say, where are you from? And Karen goes, I'm from Mexico. I love Mexico. Oh, Mexico's amazing. I love your food and your television and everything. So yeah, so I'm feeling a bit underappreciated.
I think I feel pretty nice. I feel nice to be like the adored foreigner, because in the US, that's not usually the reaction we get. When it's like a white American, usually with a Mexican, or just a non-Mexican or non-Latino, like there's not that kind of excitement because the countries are so close and there's a lot of familiarity already. There's not a whole lot of like, oh wow, you're exotic. I remember when we were in Brazil, we would get a lot of like, wow, you're Mexican, like that's so far away and that's so cool. But here it's a lot of like, wow, like we love your music, we love your food, which I think is really cool.
It's a cultural powerhouse, like Mexico and like Latin America. They export a lot of cultural things and like food and stuff.
So that's good to know. Like it's not just us that loves Mexico because we have like a close tie with Mexico in some way. Colombia loves Mexico too, and I feel like, at least for us, that's part of the reason why we feel so comfortable here, why we enjoy being here, because we get along so well. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I have another question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite like either culture shock experience, or if you can't think of one, your favorite Colombian word or phrase.
I should have prepared for this.
It's okay,
If you
no
have done it.
worries.
But, in terms of culture shock, yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Kevin's giving him
Yeah, there's nothing too
crazy. Yeah.
but just people are just insanely friendly.
Yeah,
And that's
that is nice.
That's something that's like it's unexpected. I don't really understand why people are so friendly because I'm more miserable myself. But yeah, it's a very, very, very welcoming. It's extremely open. People have invited us to their house and stuff.
Cool.
And that's really nice.
Do you have a favorite Colombian word or phrase?
Well, yeah, I was telling Kevin that razor in Mexico you say rastrillo.
Rastrillo,
And
yes.
here I went to buy one and I said, you give me rastrillo, and she was like,
She looks at
What?
you like, what?
yeah, and toothpaste.
Uh-huh.
I said pasta de dientes.
Pasta de dientes. Uh-huh.
And he was like, crema. No, toothpaste.
Crema, like cream? Like
Yeah,
Ah.
teeth cream.
tooth cream. I mean, it makes sense, but also
Yeah.
different.
There's a lot of words that are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to get used to it, or people like look at you funny. Don't really
Yeah.
understand what you say.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Well, thanks, Dave. I'm going to bring Karen back on. Vente, Karencita. Okay.
Okay.
Karencita, what has been your favorite Colombian word or phrase?
Well, I think there are quite a few. I like the accent. I like the way they say yes here. They say sí, and
Sí.
they
That's a Manizales thing.
yeah, the
Uh-huh.
Manizales thing. But there's another word that I really like, and it's culicagao.
Culicagao.
Culicagao. Basically, it means that when you're a baby, you have to wear a diaper,
Yes.
and then you have your
Culo.
culo cagado. Your
Culo cagado. Culo.
Yeah. Yeah,
Your poopy butt.
exactly.
Yeah, the
exactly.
culicagao literally
Culicagao.
translates to poopy butt.
People.
And so they use this word how?
For example, if you feel that you can have a girlfriend, let's say you're young and you're 16 years old and you want to have a girlfriend, and then your mother can say, culicagao, ¿cómo es que vas a tener una?
Yeah, you're still in diapers. How are you gonna have a girlfriend?
Yeah. So yeah, I just learned that. So this is my favorite word so far.
Okay.
But there are many, right?
I like it. There are so many. There's one of my favorites is chimba. Like
Chimba.
It's technically a bad word, but depending on like your social circle and where you are, it's used like, oh, that's so cool, que chimba.
Que chimba.
But it can also be an insult. I also like cara chimba, like
Uh-huh.
you're a chimba face.
Yeah.
Which
What does that mean?
chimba on its own can also mean like phallic type of, organs and things like that. But depending on the context and the way you say it, like, so to me it's really fun to hear, because it's the same thing in Mexico. There are certain words where like the context that you use them, que pedo.
Yeah.
¿Y cuál es el pedo? O sea, estoy pedo. O sea, the word pedo, the word fart has so many different things. And so the word chimba also, I feel is very versatile. It also sounds cool.
Now that you mentioned about that, que pedo, which can be what's up.
Yeah.
I was very confused when they used, not now, because obviously I know the meaning, but they used que más. And I was like,
¿Qué más? Like, what's up?
It's what's up. But que más literally means
what else?
What else?
And I was like, I don't know, what else?
Yeah. What do I say here?
Like, what do you mean? What else? What?
Maybe they feel the same when we say que pedo. Que
Uh-huh.
pedo.
And that happened to us the other day where we were like, we're having a conversation. We're like, y luego? And then? Like, and then they're like, well, y luego qué? Like, and then what? We're like, no, just, what else? What else? Literally,
just something
literally. Something we say. Just something
ignore it.
Just ignore it. It's just something we say. Yeah. Okay. So there's a word that I've heard in Colombia and that is used in Mexico, and especially in the U.S. and in the Mexican American community in Chicago, at least for me. And that word is Paisa. I want to talk about the word Paisa. Who here in this stream, or if you're watching this, has heard the word Paisa or uses the word Paisa? I want to know how you use it, or in what context you've heard it, because I feel like it can vary. So I want to ask you, Well, I want to ask you what your perception is of the word paisa. I'll share, like in Mexico, and I'll share what my perspective of the word is based from the U.S. And then we'll talk about what it means here in Colombia because it's very different. So,
Okay.
the word paisa, what does it mean to you?
Oh my god! So I'm confused now. But honestly, when I'm in Mexico, I don't hear it very often.
Okay,
It's
uh-huh.
just it's not.
It's a word you're familiar with but don't really use.
Yes, exactly. And the reason is because the only example where we used it is when we were living in Vietnam, and I would hang out with my friends, Mexican friends, and we said, let's go with my paisana,
Paisano,
paisano.
like
It's like,
my parce in Colombia, my
yeah,
buddy, my friend.
yeah, but it also is like we are from the same country
Uh-huh.
and we are hanging out in another country, and that's in the only context that I would use it.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, so speaking from my perspective in the U.S., Chicago mainly, it's a word that like I've noticed is used, or even in my family is used to refer similar to someone from your part, either the same part of Mexico or from Mexico. It says, this is mi paisa, o sea, él es paisa. That means he's one of us, right? And but also there are like memes that kind of poke a little bit of fun at like how a paisa dresses, right, so to speak, and that refers to what someone in my context, rural Zacatecas, like los ranchos de Zacatecas, or maybe los ranchos de Mexico, in the northern part of Mexico, where they got like the flannel type shirt, the baseball cap with the name of their pueblo, the name of their hometown on there, some boots, a big belt buckle, beer, whatever. Just someone who's from stereotypically from like a rural part of Mexico.
Something different.
Yeah, so I feel like in Chicago, if we're going to a party, we're like, we're going to a paisa party. We're gonna go because they're gonna have banda, because they're gonna have norteñas.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we use it to like refer to a culture or a type of person.
But it involves like it's not just the person, it's just like
it's like a personality type almost. And it doesn't refer to someone from all over Mexico. It's like for us in my community, like my Mexican American community of Chicago, particularly that. You got something to add to that?
I have to add to it because it's like driving me crazy, but in some cases it's almost used derogatory.
Really?
Because
depending on how
when you connect it to like a rural town of Mexico or like a rural place in Mexico, they'll use it as an insult and says, deja de ser paisa. No seas paisa. Take off your Mexican and stop being paisa.
Stop being so
it's very Mexican. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No.
But not in a good way.
That's a really good point, because I forget that it's a bad thing, because I'm so proud to be Mexican. I don't care. Like, but there are people who will go like
just classist people, probably.
It is very classist, because rural parts of Mexico, especially rural parts of Zacatecas, are much poorer, and it can be very classist as well. You're so right.
I think that's changing.
Yeah. So here somebody gave an example. Yeshua, ¿qué onda paisa? That's a good way that they use it. And then they go, no seas paisa. They're saying like, oh, don't be stupid. Almost like the way that they treat pastos here in Colombia.
So, don't be stupid.
Yeah. So other people have said like they don't use it, but they've heard it a lot in California too. Okay, that's good to know.
So it seems that you hear it more in the United States
to refer to like people from Mexico. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot because the people who migrate tend to be, and I say tend to because not always, tend to be from either lower class, looking for opportunities, looking for work. And so it's a word that they bring from that community.
From the community. I know that you're about to mention this, but I was familiar with the word, but not very. And when I heard the word here in Colombia, I didn't do the connections because I'm not very familiar. And obviously, as you said, in Colombia means something different.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that's the meaning in Colombia. But I never did the connection.
So let's talk about that. What if, based on your understanding, what does paisa mean here in Colombia?
Well, I still don't understand. And actually, I had another understanding more or less before yesterday. But the term paisa, it's a region. It's a region. that covers the Departamento Antioquia, Caldas. I think there's another one. I don't remember.
Okay.
But and that's yeah. And people who are from there are called Paisa. But not many people. It seems not many people call themselves Paisa. So that's
It's not like a
the
personal identity. It's more like
it's
someone else identifies them.
yeah,
that way?
and then you can, for me, you can identify a Paisa person because of their accent,
Okay.
the way they speak.
Yeah. Based on what I've heard is that it's mainly people from Medellin, people who are either from that area around Medellin because they have a similar accent. So
Yeah.
here in Manizales, are we close to Medellin? I'm sorry, I don't know based on
Not
the map.
really,
Not really.
by bus,
But
7
like
hours.
by association. So Manizaleños, people in Manizales don't consider themselves very Paisa, Colombian Paisa, but others from other parts of Colombia will hear their accent and associate it to the Paisa accent because it sounds similar. So for anyone who's, we're talking about the different areas and regions, and if you're not familiar with the geography of Colombia, we're mainly talking about like this very central mountainous region in Colombia where it's like the Medellin area, that state, and then like the surrounding areas. And those, that's what they refer to. Those are paisas. Those are people.
Yeah.
And if you've heard of, if you're familiar with Colombian food, there's the bandeja paisa, which is very like, it's almost like the national dish, I think, of Colombia.
Yeah.
So it's a word you hear a lot, but not always, oh yes, I'm paisa. It's more like people talking about others.
It's like I'm from this state.
And then they go, oh, you're a paisa. Like that.
Yeah.
And but is it derogatory here? No, right? It doesn't seem to be.
No, they don't. As you said, it's just other people from other parts of Colombia call them Paisa here, and it seems they don't really identify with that term. But if you look it up online, they say the region is Paisa. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really.
Yeah.
I don't understand very well.
Yeah, but when the ways that I've heard it, it sounds like more of just like an identity, but not but not an insult. Whereas in the U.S.,
you can use it.
It can be used as an. So someone else here has commented. Sorry, who is it? Lista says, I got called Paisa for a long time because when I first moved to the U.S., because she didn't speak English, and so that's almost like, oh, you don't speak English and you're super Paisa, and it's like almost like wanting to insult someone.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting for anyone who wasn't familiar with the word. And so for us, like I'm coming with that context and I'm hearing the word Paisa here in Colombia and I'm like, I'm so confused. What's going on here? So that's been one of the big culture shocks for me particularly.
Okay, I'm understanding now why you feel this like
confusion, choque cultural, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought, like, I wrongly assumed that you would have a similar experience with the word. I had no idea that this was a word that you just never really used in Querétaro, Hidalgo, or wherever you were living.
No, not really.
It's really interesting.
That is really interesting because as I said, I know the word. Now I understand your point, but not really. We don't use it really because probably we are not in Mexico. We are always in Mexico, so people don't do that difference probably.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
All
right. So I'm gonna start. We're gonna start wrapping this up, but I want to bring Kevin back on so that we can tell you a little bit about what we have going on and what we've got coming.
Actually, we can bring Karen up too.
Yeah. Okay. Karen, come back. We're gonna talk about Cali versus Manizales. So, like we mentioned, we have a little rivalry going on because they totally followed us here.
All right, let's get Dave. Let's get Dave here. Let's start wrapping this up all together and let's get this rivalry.
All right. So what really happened? What really happened? We were living at your place.
What?
They came to live in Colombia, and we were thinking about what we wanted to do in December. And we've always wanted to go to the Feria de Cali, and we're like, well, if we're gonna go, we might as well stay there a few months and learn how to dance. So I will say that we happened to make that decision while you were in Colombia.
We inspired you.
Yeah,
and
a
you wanted
little,
to-
but only a little bit. It's, you know, we came to Colombia for the first time.
It's fine, accepted.
Let me finish.
We finally get to talk trash to each other in person, right?
Yeah, we've been like competing with one another in social media, Instagram, and some posts about how much cooler Cali is and how one copied the other. The reality is that we all like really enjoy being here. We've all been here before. They were here. Okay, they were here first 12 years ago. We didn't know you when we came here 3 years ago. And so it was just, I think it's really cool that we happen to be here at the same time. I'm really happy about that because we get to see each other, share experiences.
Another thing is that we realized right away, obviously, that Cali is completely different compared to Manizales, starting with the size, with people, the population, the culture as well. So yeah, that's why we started to show off what we have, and you started to show off what we have, what you have. So
moving forward, what we have planned is we're gonna show off each other's cities and post videos on kind of convincing each other which city is better. So yeah, I hope y'all are looking forward to it because
it's a good time.
In order to impress someone, right, you got to show them the best and the parties, the food. So
and we're playing hard to get. We're like, okay, impress me. Let me see what you got.
Because we love pressure. Because we love fighting too. You know, this is the opportunity to make our poster, right?
Yeah. So I hope it goes well today.
Wow, Kyle, like that, Team Karencita.
Wow, we see how it is.
Be careful, you're in the Eat Baila Travel channel.
All right, Kyle, I see how it is.
So yeah, moving forward, that's what we all got from both channels. At the same time, you know, we want to thank, while we're all here together, all of our Patreons, all of our subscribers, our family, our friends.
Everyone
make
watching,
sure that you follow both of our channels and that you like, subscribe, and
comments. We love to see your comments.
Even if it's trash talking or like just like
just telling them how Manizales is better than Cali.
That works as well. And of course,
we will see.
Karen has Spanish courses that she's offering, so make sure to check those out. Join our Patreons. We're gonna definitely get a little bit more rivalry going. Maybe go behind the scenes in these parties because
it's
crazy. So
and it's something that I want to mention because we are enjoying, but at the same time we're working. It's like we have to be in two modes. And that is something that we really appreciate. Your likes, your comments in a video, everything. Now that we're in Colombia, I know that a lot of you are here because you follow Mexico content, and we love Mexico. We'll be back there, but it's nice to see other environments and why we are enjoying Colombia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got a saludo from Cali, not Cali, California. Thank you so much.
Well, since this is an Eat Baila Travel live stream, we have to do this together.
Okay.
And in a 1,
and a
2,
and a 3.
Se cuidan, se bañan y nos vemos hasta la próxima. Ciao. Oh, this is that.